All right. Hello, everybody. This is Fun Police, and today I actually have a special guest on this video.
Greetings.
Yep, this is Ciggy Snake. He is someone that also plays a lot of Void War, and I know you have a channel where you make a variety of videos.
That's correct. Same name. Not Void War related, it's video essay type stuff, video game type stuff, that sort of thing. Check it out if you want. But here it's all about Void War.
Yep. And you'll be able to find links to his stuff in the description. So you'll be able to go over and see what he does over there. But for today, we're going to be making a tier list about all of the current ships within Void War. So we're going to be ranking them from pretty much the highest, the best in the game, all the way down to the ones that are frankly not that great.
Less than fun.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to be, considering these with all of the commanders in respect. I feel like we need to just make that clear that we're not going to try to pick certain commanders for different ships because that might bias the results or our rankings a little bit. Because some ships definitely are way more manageable with exile or something like that. So we're going to try to be generalist in this tier list.
100%.
And otherwise, I guess we can just get into it by talking about Imperial A.
The venerable starting ship, yes.
Yep, made up of a fairly standard loadout. It's got a Storm Cannon 1 and a Bolt Cannon for a 3-shot salvo out of the gate.
Acceptably strong on that end.
Mm-hmm. And then it also has 2 Imperial Enforcers, which aren't exactly top of the line, but are decently bulky as a starting crew.
For sure.
And then also the unique system that the ship starts with is a launch bay at level 1, letting you launch 2 people over.
Easing you into the boarding-focused gameplay of Void War with the starting ship.
Yeah, overall I feel like essentially this is a very middle-of-the-road ship. There's nothing, massively wrong with it, but it's also not exactly it's not one of the broken ships in the game. It's just very consistent, good starts, and has room to flex into pretty much anything you could want it to.
Jack of all trades, master of none type deal, which I think is appropriate for the first ship, the starting ship, the introduction to the game.
Absolutely. Would you agree with it being in a high B, low A tier as a starting foundation?
I'd put it closer to middle of the pack B, absolute dead center of the bell curve for Imperial A here.
I can absolutely see that. Yeah, definitely just
certainly in B though.
Yeah, one of those ships. It's nothing's wrong with it, but there's just it lacks a little bit of spice that maybe would put it into the higher tiers compared to some of the other ships we're going to get talking about.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly.
Do we want to talk about any of commanders specifically that are good on the ship, or do we want to just, kind of move on to the next one?
Well, it's a ship that can handle basically any commander thanks to its launch bay, so it does have that option of variety going for it, which is nice, but again, it doesn't necessarily take it out of B tier just off of that.
Yeah, there's not one that really takes it over the edge, especially because it has that innate boarding. So commanders like Exile and Cyberfuse don't knock it up a level compared to certain other ships we'll talk about maybe in a little bit.
Yeah. The one that comes to mind personally is Assault B for that, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there.
Yep. Now we'll just head on to the variant B for Assault, or for Imperial. Sorry.
You're good.
Imperial B is a variant, obviously, of the Imperial ships. Its loadout starts with a Retributor 3, which is a 3-shot weapon, and then it also contains an Energy Lance, which is 1 damage and also has 4 shots per jump. Also has an Imperial Acolyte with Force Shield, and an Imperial Magister starting with Rejuvenate. And then
Hmm.
it has no unique starting systems outside of the ones every ship comes with.
The basics, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Overall, I like Imperial B quite a bit.
As do I.
You know, the ability to have two spellcasters is always nice, and especially the fact that you do start with healing thanks to the rejuvenate. It makes it a lot easier to like recover early on if you have to deal with like borders or take damage from like a variety of things.
Definitely. The starting crew is squishy and not the best fighters, to say the least. But the fact that they can basically expend their entire health pool and immediately heal back up off of the Imperial Magister it shores up that weakness to a degree. And that's not even getting into the fact that if you have Exile or Cyberfused or go in the direction of boarding in any way, you have healing out the gate, which, dramatically improves your boarding capacity.
Absolutely. Plus, the armament is just like honestly rock solid.
Yeah, like
Energy.
comfortably good set of
Yeah,
armaments.
Energy Lance is great. It pretty much allows you to disable shields throughout the several first sectors, and it's always useful to snipe important systems. And then Retributor 3 also has, 3 shots is just good on almost any weapon, even if its charge time is a little long.
Yeah. To me, when it comes to the energy lance, I feel it's best used against enemy armaments early on, as that typically desyncs them or
Yeah,
makes it so that they're only firing a one-shot volley in Sector 1, even in Sector 2,
yeah.
meaning your hull is pretty safe in the early game. That's not all ships can say that. That's a pretty valuable thing going for Imperial B.
Plus, you even have the Force Shield if you are worried about a heavy
That too.
barrage. You
That
can
too.
catch a missile, cast projectiles. There's some good utility that the Acolyte adds to the ship. But yeah, Energy Lance is really nice to just get those like annoying systems down. It's definitely helped me to like disable like a missile system or deal with like a siege weapon. Those are really good pickups for it to snipe.
100%.
Now, where would you place it in a tier list?
Definitely an A. Probably middle of A.
Yeah, I think definitely better than Imperial A is, just because
Oh,
it's
easily.
got like it just got more like it's much easier to like spin momentum up with this ship compared to I think Imperial A. Uh,
For sure.
Plus it also uh, Magister has 2 psyker slots, right? Or is that
Yeah.
yeah? So
One
uh,
fill rejuvenate, one free. So
yeah.
another
So
really nice
he
thing going
had
for
yeah.
it.
I forgot to mention that. So yeah, he even had you even have a bit of like open psyker, so you can go to early shaman shops, or you can just use a random spell you find in a reward, which is always like a nice benefit. But yeah, I feel like A tier is a good placement. Maybe not the top of A because I think that's you need a ship that's like really strong to sit there. But yeah, I definitely agree. And then moving on.
It's got a lot of defensive power
Yep.
going for it, but its offenses are just good as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's easy to augment the offensive pretty easily to make it capable of going through most of a run.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Imperial C. Now, this is, I would say, probably the best of the Imperial ships.
Easily.
Yeah, it's a very strong one. Going over its loadout, it's got a Retributor 2, which is a 2-shot weapon for 1 power, very effective, and a Magnetic Pulse 1, which is a weapon that I think people generally underrate because it doesn't deal any damage to ships. However, the benefit is that for 1 power, you get 2 projectiles that are able to hit shields, meaning that it's actually a really cheap way to knock shields down for other weapons to get through.
Yeah, it's one of the most affordable and really best shield strippers in the game.
Then on top of that, you also have an Imperial Sorcerer who carries a Fireball and a free additional Psyker slot. And on top of that, you even have an Imperial Marshal who has bonus damage in fire rooms, meaning that they can combo naturally together. He also has a fairly flexible body with a weapon, armor, and tool slot. So there's actually a
A
nice.
generalist unit, for sure.
Yes, very nice. And then on top of that, a unique thing is that the ship starts with the thrice cursed reliquary, meaning that you'll commonly pick up dark matter prisms, which essentially means that this ship starts with innate boarding.
And not just a simple innate boarding, you have full 4-man 2x2 boarding right out the gate off of those DMPs.
Yes, and they're even useful. You even start with 2 right from the get-go. So if your first jump has something like a chest or you really need the board, you're able to do that right away. And then the unique system that this ship has is a graviton field generator, which is able to slow enemy crews, which has some fun implications with the fires that you can start with Imperial Sea.
And is otherwise beneficial for boarding operations.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think we're in pretty good agreement that this is probably one of the best ships in the game. I think it sits very
easily.
highly. It's just very synergistic, is how I'd describe it.
Yeah, it just has a lot going for it, and it all meshes well.
You can. I would say one tip that I would give, because I personally had a lot of trouble with this ship early on. I couldn't get it to click, but a big thing that I found was try not to be using your dark matter prisms every fight. Try to stockpile them so later in a run when you really need to be boarding every time, you have a good stockpile of them to utilize.
Yeah, 100%. You're given a really good set of starting armaments, and on top of that, you can get system and hull damage off of Fireball plus Graviton, so you don't have to worry too much about boarding every other jump. Once you have 2 spare DMPs in storage and 2 on your commander or your marshal, you're basically good to go.
Absolutely. And then also you can use the Graviton if you board into an enemy ship. Use the Graviton as the enemy crew is getting into the room, and then you essentially get some free seconds of DPS. Which is a good trick to get a lot of value out of the Graviton, especially if your weapons have on-kill effects, like stuns. You can just essentially take almost no damage and wipe entire crews out.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think this is a pretty easy S-tier ship.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's such a good, well-rounded ship that just flows together and works with pretty much every commander. At least anyone that has a tool slot, really. Maybe some of the Psyker-based commanders are a little bit worse on it, because you don't need as much in the Psyker way, because you have the Imperial Sorcerer, but, I mean, this is just... Can't really go wrong with this ship, though.
It just has a lot going for it, yeah.
So those are the Imperials, all pretty good overall. The worst ship is, a very vanilla ship.
Middle of the road B tier, yeah.
And otherwise, all 3 of them are pretty strong, so good pickups. And then let's head on to the next one, the Interdictor series. So, Interdictor A is probably the second ship people will unlock in the game, since you get it from beating a run with Imperial A, or...
You don't even need to beat the run with Imperial A. You just have to get to Sector 4, if I remember correctly, to unlock Interdictor A.
I completely forgot about that. Well, yeah, so this is usually one of the ships that you'll start out with. This ship starts with an armament of a Storm Cannon 1, which is a 2-shot weapon, alongside a Disruptor, which is essentially a 1-shot ion weapon. Then it has a single Corsair as a crew member, which may seem quite bad, but there is something that potentially helps to offset that, which is the fact that the ship starts with a husk rack, meaning that every 7 seconds, a temporary husk will be created to further man systems, or you can even use the launch bay to send the husks over to fight on the enemy ship, which is backed up by the fact that they have a module, hardened casing, that gives all machine slave units 10 more HP, which includes the husks, meaning they have 25 health. Overall, I think that this ship has an interesting idea, but I don't know how well it really executes that idea.
The issue with the idea is that it's just slow to actually realize due to
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you're waiting 7, 14, 21 seconds for your husk rack to actually produce subhusks to use either defensively to man systems or for anti-boarding and repairs or offensively. The slowness of the offense is really the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you know,
where the idea of this ship fails to realize itself,
yeah,
if that
because
makes sense.
absolutely, no, absolutely. Because if you look at it, like most weapons, charge in 10 to 20 seconds. So if you're waiting 21 seconds to send 3 husks over to the enemy ship, a whole barrage has come down on your ship, likely damaging stuff, and overall just dealing damage. It's usually like those first like 20 seconds are often super important in fights in order to like minimize how much damage you're taking, or even just winning the fight outright if you have like a strong boarding party or something. So having to wait
Yeah,
so
exactly.
long is what really hurts it. Now, granted, hardened casing does have a little bit of extra value in that a lot of the machine slaves, like from the techno cult, get the benefit of it. So you can pick up like servo husks and assault husks, and they're all going to get 10 more HP as well, which is a nice little benefit if you're looking to like bulk your crew out.
It's definitely a nice module to have, even outside of the husk rack synergy.
Plus we do have to give credit that the ship does also start with boarding again, meaning that certain commanders that lack innate boarding are able to immediately go over, which is nice. This works, I think, especially well with like mutant and barbarian, because you can send him and like 1 husk over real quick, and that's like at least something of a boarding party that'll kill a couple enemy units.
Archmage is also quite good because you're getting 2 Psyker slots on a
Mm-hmm.
ship that doesn't even have tool slots. So,
Yeah,
beneficial on that end. You could say the
that's
same for
another real
Heiress as
thing.
well.
Yeah, the lack of tool slots and psyker slots is a notable weakness of the ship. Uh, yeah, I feel like this is kind of like a C tier ship. It's just
Yeah, same.
it's lacking something to make it like stand out from the rest of the pack. And granted, Huskrak has been getting buffed slowly. Like it's better than it was, but it's still like a little short, I think, of uh, where it needs to be.
I think it's reasonable to predict that this ship's ranking will rise gradually as Huskrak is improved and perhaps given a few more trinkets and baubles to improve its efficacy.
Hmm.
But at present, C, probably near the top of C, is about where I'd put it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But we can move on to probably a decent bit of a stronger ship, the Interdictor B.
Yeah,
This ship
fully agree.
starts out with 2 weapons. Starting out, it has a flare cannon, which fires 2 shots for 1 power. However, the weapon does not deal any damage to systems or hulls. Instead, it simply creates hull breaches, which are going to need to be repaired and cause suffocation damage in the room. And then it also has a Storm Cannon 1 for 2 shots that actually deal damage. To combine with this, the ship also has 2 commandos, which notably are immune to suffocation themselves and even get a bonus DPS when in vacuums. And then also the ship, again, starts with a launch bay, allowing it to have innate boarding onto it. I think overall it is a ship that has a very specific playstyle, but it is one that can work well if you really lean into it.
Absolutely.
The ability to essentially kind of use flare cannon as another shield stripper, kind of as how we talked about the magnetic pulse weapon. That's always very nice. And then Storm Cannon 1 is not great, but it's at least decent firepower. You can overall get by in the early game with it. Uh,
I wouldn't even say you can get by. You have a respectable early game off of the fact that this is still a 4-shot volley.
that is true.
Plus, the flare cannon, even though it's not dealing hull damage, those breaches do delay repairs where possible.
Yes,
So
that is
you're
very
able
true.
to suppress the enemy much more effectively than you might think off of first blush.
Yeah, plus the commandos, like they just got it. This is right after patch 12 has come out, and commandos got some pretty nice buffs. They got a little more health and that DPS in vacuum. So, like, when you get them into one of those vacuumed rooms, they're gonna be 5 DPS and 45 HP, which isn't like incredible, but is good enough with the suffocation that they can generally get early kills, especially against like
Yeah.
weaker crew members. But they're not going to be able to like fight knights, which is, I think, kind of where the ship has a bit of an issue. It just there's kind of a limit to how good the boarding is when you're leaning into that suffocation.
You
Normally, at
definitely need
least.
to invest a bit more into boarding, be it in getting better weapons, be it in getting better crew, but you nonetheless have a respectably strong start boarding wise
Hmm.
just off of those commandos.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I'll say that's kind of like a detriment in the early game is the fact that that the commandos have a repair speed penalty. This means
True.
that your crew, like if you get behind with this ship, can be hard to come back because you have nothing that really like, two commandos is equal to one husk in terms of repair. So if you take a lot of damage from something, it can be sometimes hard to get it actually fixed during a battle.
Yeah. You definitely want to focus a shipyard to get a husk, a mercenary broker to get a recruit or a corsair or something like that. But once you have that, that issue of slow repair is more or less taken care of.
Yeah. Also, it's really nice to have healing. Early healing is super good with this ship because it helps to keep the commandos ready. Uh, because 45 health, and they don't have any armor or tool slots, so they're gonna be taking some damage. I definitely, you can't lean on the boarding every single time until you find either a healing or get stronger crew members to back up the commandos with.
For sure. Nonetheless, it's a respectably strong ship. I'm sure you'd agree with me in putting it somewhere around A.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Uh,
Probably bottom of A, but A nonetheless. It's a reliably good ship.
yeah, it's like, especially as the commandos get better. Like, I would maybe argue, like, before the last patch, it would have been maybe like high B, but I think the commandos are like good enough now that it can push into A, low A.
Personally, I still would have put it in low A even with the slightly weaker commandos, but now it's unquestionably an A.
Yeah, definitely. Nowadays it is. And
Yeah.
then Interdictor C is our last ship of the Interdictor series. This one has a couple things that are very notable about it. First off, it starts with a Retributor 1 and 2, meaning it's got a 3-shot volley. And then it also contains the Incendiary Missile, which is a fairly fast-shooting missile that does not deal any hull damage, but instead just creates multiple fires in a room.
It doesn't deal hull damage directly, but those fires
Yeah,
consistently result
yeah,
in hull damage just off of that.
yeah. Usually the AI is not ready to stop the fires from getting at least one tick off.
Yeah.
Then, in terms of crew, it's got the Imperial Scribe, which is essentially a husk with a tool slot, and then it also carries Purify on it. And Purify is probably the best spell in the game, I would say.
Best in what it does, it's definitely like an S tier spell with the likes of Etheric Gauge or Chaos Rift and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. It's incredibly valuable. No one's denying that, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we also have a Gene Soldier, who is a very bulky unit with 70 HP and a hefty 5 DPS. He does have a weakness to suffocation that will kill him very rapidly if he ever stands in a vacuum. But he also has an armor weapon and tool slot, so he becomes a very powerful character that can also scale well, even into fighting knights and whatnot.
He's a discount knight for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm. And then also the ship starts with a module, the God King's Mantle, where when you get a reward from events or battle or whatever, you're able to get 3 options instead of 2, giving you a bit more of a chance to either find something you really want or, just giving you a little more flexibility throughout a run.
It's nice to have, not game breaking, but it can definitely help.
Yeah, I think overall this is a ship that is like, granted, I think the ship has a lot going for it out of the gate. I mean, I always value Purify really highly on ships.
Same.
It's just like there's just never a situation where being able to pop Purify is not useful, whether that's like against death cults, whether it's dealing with mind control, whether it's, you know, just there's never been a there's
Getting rid
just
of strength.
yeah, exactly. There's being able to just like press a button and ignore a bunch of spells is really useful. You know, you have a great combat unit to work with. Like if you can find boarding for the Gene Soldier or alongside your commander, you can often have a really good two-man boarding team right away.
For sure.
Then there's also, you know, just the weapons themselves are pretty nice. Being able to, you know, a three-shot volley is good enough. You know, it's not like maybe super top of the line, but it's definitely like enough to carry you in the early game. And the incendiary missile allows you to like push one level above that. Uh, you know, plus the amount of fires you start. You know, like all your weapons are going to be starting a lot of fires if you need to, which slowly kills down enemy crew. It's going to be dealing system damage. You know, so you can.
Fantastic against the boss.
Yes.
And the mini boss as well.
Yeah, incendiary missile is like a really good missile ever since it got buffed to make multiple fires. It's just very, very useful in that regard.
100%.
You know, I would say probably like there's nothing wrong with this ship, but I don't know. I don't think it's better than Interdictor B. I feel like it's ever so slightly worse than it overall.
It's definitely in B, in my eye.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to quantify, but I feel like there's something that's just a little bit off about it. Like it could use.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's missing a little. It's just missing a little something.
Mm-hmm.
Still a good ship. Still totally usable. Just not like comfortably good A tier type material.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's hard to place because I guess yeah. It's just I don't know how to play. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but it's just there. It's like it's a little something that's not there. Now here's the
Yeah.
question: do we think it's better than Imperial A or worse? Are we going to start ranking these tiers, or do we want to maybe wait until we get a couple more ships placed down before organizing this?
I mean, honestly, that's a good question.
Mhm.
I'd probably put it literally just above it, just above Imperial A.
Yeah, that's what I was leaning to, because the incendiary missile and the purify, I think, like, give it that nudge above.
Agreed. Agreed.
Right, so those are the interdictors. Let's go to the relic freighters. All right, so moving on, let's talk about Relic Freighter A. The loadout of Relic Freighter A is very simple. It's got 3 Putreficator 1s, each one-shot weapons with a quick charge time that creates toxic gas. Its crew is made up of a Deathbringer carrying a Chaos Rift and fairly decent stats for a Psyker unit. It also has the ever-incredible Death Knight, one of the best units in the game, and obviously being a knight with a Psyker spell on it. It also has Corpse Effigy, meaning that enemies that get poisoned suffer half repair speed, slowing down their repair capabilities. Overall,
Overall.
Yep, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, overall, I think this is an incredible ship.
Agreed. Fully agreed.
Yeah, I mean, there's just great quick barrages of 3 shots. It's got a good amount of psyker power, and it starts with a Death Knight that you can board immediately with. Like, there's just nothing I can really say. I don't think there's not a lot to say about this one. This is really good.
Yeah, kind of my thoughts as well. It doesn't have anything too crazy going for it in terms of the ship itself, but its crew is just so insane, and the role or purpose of them so obvious and so effective that it's just a good ship. Comfortably an S.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Yeah, really not much to add to it. It's just a dang good ship. But let's now go from a really good ship to probably, in my opinion,
A not very good ship.
yeah, exactly. Relic B is a ship that has a loadout of a Putreficator 2, a 2-shot weapon for 1 power, a Radium Blaster that doesn't deal any hull damage but instead deals 30 crew damage, which is quite a bit, and then an Acid Missile that creates toxic gas and does 1 damage when it hits a system. The crew is made up of a Mortician that is able to summon Rot Spawn, which are weak zombies that create gas when they die, a Death Mage with Drain Strength, and then a Necromancer with the ability to raise 2 ghouls in target room. It also has a pathogenic recycler unit that gives all Death Cultist units 10 bonus HP. Overall, the ship is just very messy in its design, I think is the best way to put it.
Well put, yes.
It just, overall, these things don't line up very well. You're not able to, like, utilize the summons very well, as they are too weak to really fight the enemy crew. And then
I feel the idea behind it is you're supposed to summon your ghouls and rot spawn, then as enemy crew trickle in, you hit them with the Death Mage's Drain Strength. But as you said, they're so weak, so squishy, that it's next to impossible to effectively time that Drain Strength to get the free damage that would come from that off of the mini 3 DPS units you fight early game. So the idea is there, it's just the execution isn't really in the slightest.
Yeah, plus there's also weird things like the timing of the different weapons. You know, the Radium Blaster has a fairly slow projectile, so you have to time it very specifically to line it up if you want a 3-shot barrage with the Putreficator.
A 3-shot barrage is nice, but as you said, lining them up is annoying, and it's just slow enough that you start to feel it with the 17-second charge time on the Putrefactor 2.
Yeah, and this ship did, just like in the last patch, get the Acid Missile, which thankfully is giving the ship a little bit more to come out with, you know, since it can actually deal damage. But even then, I don't think it really saves the armament. And then I think probably also one of the most annoying things is that the crew kind of sucks. Like, this crew has a bunch of low DPS psychers that can't fight to save their lives, and they can't even get, like, weapons, really, or good weapons, so you have to, like, fix your crew and your weapons at the same time.
I wouldn't go that far. I feel the crew is okay. You have weapon slots on the Mortician and the Death Mage, and the Death Mage has that Drain Strength, so if you are ever boarded, you are able to respond to boarders. It's far from ideal, but it's workable in that regard, in my opinion.
I've had some bad runs with this where it's like I just get overwhelmed after a couple fights. It's just, you know...
I mean, any run on Relic B is a bad run,
yeah,
so that tracks.
The ship just overall is not very good. Now, I guess the question is, how far down are we putting this? Is it all the way in like a D tier? Do we think it's just a C tier ship? Where do we want to place it?
If we're being generous, it would be absolute bottom of C. If we're being real, it's absolute top of D.
Let's put it down in D tier. It's definitely like one of the weakest ships in the game.
Aside, last thing, I absolutely hate the arrangement of rooms, the actual ship loadout. A oxygen system, or life support system, in a 1x1, and everything connected by that doors system right in the center. It is annoying to vent, it's annoying to navigate, it's honestly one of the worst ships in that regard, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, you know, especially because, like...
And for a ship as mediocre in all other aspects, it doesn't need that annoyance factor on top of it.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, especially if things like, if the shield room gets really messed up or something, getting into oxygen or missiles or anywhere on the ship, it's just, yeah, it's not a great layout.
Yeah.
But moving on to Relic C, this ship has a unique armament featuring the Zeus Cannon, which is essentially an upgraded Thunder Cannon, dealing 3 damage per shot in a single shot with only 1 power required. and then also having a Radium Blaster 2, which is 2 shots of a Radium Blast, meaning that it could deal upwards of 60 damage if both were to hit a room. On top of this, it
Or it's a
has...
good way of stripping 2 shields.
Exactly. Then there's also the Apostles of Decay, which have the Summon Bloatmite, which is... Bloatmites are small little creatures that don't fight very well, but when they die, they deal system damage and spread poison in the room that they die in, meaning that you have another way to essentially sabotage enemy systems. There's also the module Sigil of Rot, which doubles the amount of damage enemies take from poison. I think overall, Relic C is like everything Relic B was trying to do, but actually successful in it. Because you can actually kill the enemy crew somewhat reliably with this thing.
Yeah. The Bloatmites exploding, dealing system damage, and then gassing the room has a pretty fantastic synergy, as the enemy will trickle in, trying to repair the system, and they'll just be taking poison damage the entire time, and double poison damage off the module. So you're able to get a pretty respectable amount of crew damage off of poison just off of that. So if you're augmenting it with something like White's Rot Spawn or even Witch's Death Bolt, you can get really good damage off on the enemy crew.
Yeah, definitely. Plus the Zeus Cannon is honestly like an incredibly good weapon. Just so much damage in a relatively quick charge time only for 1 power. Like, it's something you use the entire run. You never pretty much replace the Zeus Cannon. It's a really good...
Yeah, once you're getting better armaments, it's going to be a component of your salvo no matter what, and a strong one at that.
Yeah, I mean, and, and you covered the ability to kill everything. Plus the layout, I think, is a decent bit better. You get a lot more room to, navigate. Compared to
Agreed. It's a solid loadout, or a layout, I should say.
Yeah, it just everything comes together to actually you can actually kill, and you can kill enemy crew. It's got decent support. It can lay good damage on systems when needed. It's just overall, I think it's a very solid ship. Not as good as Relic A is, because that's...
Few ships are as good as Relic A. Yeah,
but I want to say this is kind of A tier, low A tier, probably. Maybe.
I'd put it at top of B, because while it does have a lot going for it, it doesn't have too many special things outside of it. You only have the baseline systems. You only have 2 decent crew in terms of offense. They also have the 2 free psyker slots on them, and let's be real, if you swap out the Summon Bloatmite for a better spell, that's a totally valid move. But even still, off of that, I'm cautious to put it in A. I don't think that's a bad move. I'd probably put it top of B, personally.
Okay, yeah, we can settle for that. It's better than Relic B. That's about... We can agree on that, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Relic series overall, very all over the place. One of the best ships, one of the worst ships, and then one right in the middle. But let's go ahead and move on to the next series, which is the Assault Cruisers. Assault Cruiser A starts out with a single Storm Cannon 1 alongside a Claymore missile, which is a missile that costs 2 munitions to fire but deals 3 damage, or you have the basic Gladius missile, which is 1 munition for 1 hull damage. The ship's crew starts out with 2 Berserkers, which are generally pretty decent fighters early on, but have lower than average repair speed. And you also get a 3rd with the Scavenger, who can be a decent looter if you need to. The ship also starts with a launch bay, so you have innate boarding in it. Overall, Assault A is a ship that is... How do I want to say this?
It has a somewhat fragile start, but good fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good thing, because you really rely on missiles for that early offense. You really gotta lean on missiles until you can get to a couple shops and get a couple more weapons, because the Storm 1 drops off usually by the end of Sector 1. Once 2 shields are up, you gotta be spamming missiles to bring anything down. So armaments
or boarding.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of boarding, berserkers are like fun to play around with, but they're not exactly gonna like scale super well. You need healing to keep them from like dying real quick.
Yeah, realistically, you're going to be sending your commander and then one of the berserkers on a boarding run, and then swapping the berserker that you send out every other jump.
Mm-hmm. Assuming like and assuming they can get the job done. You can also send the scavenger. He's got a tool slot, so if you give him a shield, you could do something like that.
The scavenger is definitely nice to have. And
Yeah.
another thing that raises my estimation of this ship is the new planetary assaults, where the scavenger absolutely trivializes planetary
Mm-hmm.
assaults. He just gets everything instantly.
Yeah,
And
I
that
was
is
about to
a
mention.
yeah, it's something definitely going for this ship now. Something very valuable to it.
Yeah, it definitely, because planetaries are definitely like a high value thing you always want to try to do when they come up.
Yeah,
So, the ability to just like instantly get them done and not have to fight potentially a pretty hard battle crew wise is very nice. And it's a tool slot, which the ship otherwise wouldn't have, so that's always good to have kicking around.
also raider checks, which are generally pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Plus, there's some fun things with like the war cult checks. You can like get that one event that turns one of your war cult units into a war knight. That's always nice to sacrifice a berserker if you come across it.
And the berserker is the unit you want to sacrifice for that event because they're the bottom rung of the war cult. You aren't losing any
Mm-hmm.
psyker slots, you aren't losing the really solid conqueror or anything like that. It's perfect in that role.
Yeah. So it can be a good idea to like go to like war cult sectors, obviously, with this ship, because you roll some of those war cult events. Berserkers are good to trigger those.
I think
Plus,
they're found in exclusion zones as well, but point still
yeah.
stands.
Yep. And then, plus Berserkers, I feel like it should be mentioned, like, it's a fairly solid crew to, like, anti-board with. Like, they're pretty good against summons and whatnot. So, like, early Death Cult ships and whatnot aren't as threatening, because Berserkers are really good at, like, dealing with ghouls alongside a commander because of their passive DPS reduction.
True.
But, yeah, it's just, overall, I'm leaning... Where would you place this,
I would
overall?
definitely put this in A. The weakness of a weaker start armaments wise is definitely there, but it has a fair bit going for it otherwise.
Yeah, Yeah, it's been a while since I've played with Assault A, but yeah, I feel like A is a pretty good spot for it. Moving on, let's go to Assault B. Assault B is a ship that starts with a single weapon, a Fusillade 1, which is a 3-shot weapon that has a spread on it, so it's kind of like a shotgun. It does have a chance of missing with those shots, but otherwise it can potentially deal a good amount of damage. The ship starts with a crew of 1 Husk and then 2 Greater Warseers, which both contain a Soul Spear that, if they can get it off, deal 1 damage to target enemy room. And then the ship also uniquely starts with a Med Bay. This is a weird starting loadout, I think, to say the least,
Yeah.
because it has a med bay, which is always nice to have. That's innate healing, but it doesn't have innate boarding on it. And your weapons are very reliant on the Warseers for early offensive power. Like,
Yeah. It's it's not as though it's a bad start. As you said, it's just an unusual start. You can get a lot of value out of those soul spears, however.
mm-hmm. And you have a lot of psyker slots innately built into this. You have 2 open
True.
ones, so this ship can be very good for like a psyker heavy start if you're looking for something like that. But you'll
Definitely an
definitely
option.
have
Yeah.
to, it's definitely like another ship that kind of needs to go to early armament shops and try to pick up some more offensive. Because if you rely too much on just the Fusillade and the Soul Spears, it can take a long time with the cooldowns to actually deal damage. So you need something to like augment it a little bit.
Agreed. The same can be said for boarding, where if you just get some sort of boarding or you have a commander that starts with boarding, you're in a really good spot thanks entirely to that medbay there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, commanders like Exile and Cyberfused are very comfortable on this ship because that you have enough crew to like man all the systems. They can board, the guy can board over, and then he just heals up every time. So it's like,
Yeah.
it just needs a little bit of work to set up. But I never have like
But
an
once you have
awful
that
start.
set up, it's comfortably strong.
Yeah. Now here's the question: do you think it is better or worse than Assault A?
I'd say it's just a hair better than it.
Yeah,
They're pretty similar in power level. They're both strong and good ships. Personally, I'd probably take Assault B over Assault A if I had to choose one just to play or just to have fun with.
That's where I was leaning too. I was curious because, it's just like having the ability to lean into early psychers is always nice, and it's just, yeah, it's just the starting with a med bay. I will say one thing that does suck about this ship is that the med bay is a 2x1, meaning that at max you can only do 2 crew members healing unless you micro it really specifically, which gets kind of annoying if you have like a 4-man boarding party.
I find the micro to be manageable enough, but it is definitely a annoyance. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
starting with healing is extremely
Oh
valuable.
yeah, it makes up for it easily. And then we get on to Assault C, which is a very interesting ship. Its starting loadout
Yeah.
is a Thunder Cannon 2, unique to this ship. It is 2 shots that each deal 2 damage, alongside a Magnetic Pulse 1. The ship has no crew, meaning the only person on the ship is your commander. The modules are the hyperlinked neural socket, which gives that commander 50% more move speed. And then the ship has a unique system of the shield charger, which, when activated, gives your ship a pretty much borderline invincibility to armaments, because it gets a massive 8-time recharge. Assault C is like one of the most unstable ships in the game. It has,
Well put.
yeah, it is insane once it gets going, but this is also like one of those ships where if you get like a bad early fight, it's over. The run's dead. It's just there's very little you can do.
It can crash and burn like nothing else.
It's,
Absolutely.
It's so all or nothing, because starting with the shield charger is insane because it's pretty much the best system in the game. Your armaments are insane. Like Mag Pulse is a great shield stripper, and Thunder 2 is so much damage. It's 4 damage for 2 power.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's just, it's just that early thing because you don't have a lot of repair, you don't have any crew, so if you deal with a lot of summons, you can get overwhelmed. It's like, yeah, it's just one of those ships that is like, it's, you will die in like the first sector or two, or you will have an incredible run, and there's like no in between in that regard.
2 things on that. While early summons can be dangerous, you do start out with doors too. So you're able to corral them and suffocate them, and you can even have your commander man doors if the summons end up in like sensors or near the front of the ship. It's a lot easier to again corral and vent them. So you aren't completely SOL if you're boarded or you get a bunch of summons. Though you do definitely want to prioritize early crew. Like hit up at least 1, probably 2 shipyards in Sector 1 just for those husks.
Yeah.
And otherwise get cheap crew like recruits, corsairs, ideally engineers.
Yeah, a couple crew,
Two.
definitely. I mean, I definitely like, I definitely have had several runs just end though. Like, one of my last runs with this ship was, I ran into like a ship full of necromancers, and it just killed me completely. And
That'll
very
happen,
little.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some ships that legit this ship will just die to, because if they break your weapons and you can't repair it, it's over. There's very little. So, in terms of
The silver lining to that is the fact that you're gonna die and crash and burn in Sector 1, so you don't lose too much of your precious time on a run for that.
Yeah,
So,
at least that. Now that, however, brings up the question of where would we place this on the tier list? Because how do we factor in the fact that this is such a good ship that just has runs that crash and burn real quick? Where do we place it on a tier list in that regard?
I feel in a way you're rolling the dice with Assault C one way or another. if you get Snake Eyes and you get a bullshit ship early on and it crashes and burns, that sucks. But if you're able to get past that, if you get to Sector 2 with this thing, this is like an A+ tier ship.
Yeah, so, but there are, like, just definitely, like, everybody will have games where it's like, this is like a C tier ship because, that nasty Sector 1 fight just kills you. So, what do you feel? Like a B tier in this regard?
I
I
If you have bad luck, it's like a C tier. If you have even mediocre luck, it's an A tier. I
Yeah.
guess splitting the difference, top of B.
Yeah, I feel like it's just, like, there are just times where it's like you run into so many like, just certain bad things will happen. Like, you can just get on, like, bad run, like, multiple bad runs with this, and it's just like, it feels like one of the most hopeless ships in those early fights sometimes.
That's fair.
You
I guess
know?
in my experience, I've had decent luck with Assault C. So the
Yeah, I've
streak
I
of
had I had like 5 runs in a row that died in, like, Sector 1 because I just kept running into, like, all necromancers, or, like, ships that had, like, energy beam 1 and just kept breaking everything before I could repair it. And it's just like,
yeah,
it reminds me of, like, Cannibal, where, like, it's like Cannibal is such a good commander, but when it's bad, it's so bad. And I feel like he can't.
yeah.
I would argue against putting it in A tier just because of that, because there's just, like, I think a limit because of the bad rolls you can get.
That's fair. I 100% get where you're coming from.
But all right, those are the assault ships. Let's go on to the heavy frigates. So heavy frigate A starts out with a bolt cannon, a single shot, fast firing weapon, alongside a twin disruptor, which fires 2 ion shots. The crew is a corsair, a infiltrator, and a scavenger, and a module of volt knives gives all of them +2 DPS, including any other raiders you pick up. On top of this, the ship starts with the unique Siege Beam, which allows you to pay 3 munitions to have a constantly firing energy beam. This is not a very good ship, I think, to put it
I
like,
I have to agree. I had a run with it a couple nights ago that went absolutely insane and kind of raised my estimation of the ship, but it's still a it's still lacking in some regards. And I think the main issue is just with its armaments.
hmm it's though you have to rely on Siege Beam, but Siege Beam becomes very expensive munition wise. It's just 3
You
munitions
can
every fight.
rely on it pretty comfortably in Sector 1, even into Sector 2, but you will want to be hitting up armament shops that entire way just to get, a Storm 2, a Storm 1 even, a Retributor 2, something like that to give you just a little bit more reliable offense and offense that doesn't cost munitions as well.
Yep. Plus, your crew is, like, really well suited for boarding with that bonus DPS, but you also got to find boarding for them. So that's
Yeah.
another thing, and that's kind of like how Relic B needs you to fix multiple things early on. I feel like Heavy Frigate is doing the same thing. If this ship had some way to, like, get boarding quick, or just had a little bit better armaments, it'd be a lot better. But because you have multiple problems to fix, it causes the ship to sink down in performance.
I feel they're relatively easy problems to solve at the very least, and
hmm
outside of that, you do have a good few things going for this ship.
Yeah.
Corsair, or not Corsair, Raider crew that are buffed up off of Volt Knives. The Scavenger, again, he trivializes planetary assaults, which you'll have your first in Sector 2, which is where this ship is still stable enough. So you're
hmm
able to get a nice scrap injection or maybe a free armament off of the big chest on a planetary assault. It's it's not bad, but as you said, it just has some weaknesses that need to be shored up sooner rather than later.
hmm I feel like it still falls into, like, kind of the bottom rungs of a tier list, though, because of those
Agreed.
problems. Like, it's not as bad as Relic B is, but I feel like C tier is probably where I'd say it kind of ends up.
I put it top of C personally. It's I feel we're running the bases at this point. We've made our point here.
Mm-hmm.
It's got its flaws, but it's not at all bad.
Yeah, there's, if you get one thing, like if you get boarding, the ship's pretty good. If you get like a better armament, the ship's pretty solid. Unlike Relic B, where it's like, okay, you fix these problems, now you got to fix another problem, and then you get a good ship.
Yeah, yeah.
Fewer hoops to jump through.
Agreed.
But moving
Top
on.
of C then.
Yep, I agree. And then Heavy Frigate B. This is a very interesting ship. So starting loadout is an Energy Beam 1, which is a quick firing but very small beam, alongside 2 bolt cannons. Each are fast firing one-shot weapons. The crew consists of a Cyber Priest, which is a pretty bulky crew that has the ability to protect a system from damage with its positron barrier. You also get 3 husks, which gives you a lot of item slots to make use of. The ship starts with a barrier relay, which is a pretty powerful system where every 2 weapons you fire gives you a force shield in a random room, up to a max of 2, giving you essentially free protection. On top of that, it has a lot of equipment, 4 repair drones, 2 hull integrity patches, and 2 micro shields. And that looks like it starts with a lot, but this is because Frigate B starts with no shields in it. None at all. And that makes it one of the most interesting ships to start a run with.
Yeah, the lack of shields is the unique elements, the draw, I guess you could say, to the ship. And you're fortunately given really good tools to limp through that lack of shields. The Cyber Priest positron barrier, there we go. It is something you're always going to want to throw on armaments to make sure that they never take damage, and you can always get your bolt cannon and get your energy beam off on the enemy. And those 2 bolt cannons and that energy beam 1 are really, really strong, because if you can just pop shields with one of those bolt cannon shots, you're able to get 3 damage off, thanks to the energy beam.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you'll be getting a barrier relay shield off of that as well. And typically before the enemy has their first salvo, because those 2 bolt cannons fire in 10 seconds.
Yeah, this ship was a little bit better before this patch due to the fact that Energy Beam 1 got nerfed. Before, Energy Beam 1 was like the best beam weapon and probably one of the best weapons in the game, but now it's got a really tiny length, meaning that it's not able to swipe 4 rooms and just be ridiculous DPS. It's still pretty good, but you got to be a lot more deliberate, and you're more likely to only get at most 3 damage, and not on crucial rooms as much.
It's Energy Beam 1 is where it needs to be in terms of power level. It's still very strong. It's just not broken.
Yeah.
S+++ tier, the best weapon in the game.
Yeah, definitely. But there is the fact that you gotta be also hitting shops to find shields, because it is possible that you can do a run without shields, but that requires a lot of skill. I mean, we know people have done it, but you're gonna have to essentially pay a tax for the most part to get shields, and then you need to power them on, and then you need to upgrade them. But after you do that, this ship becomes really good. The barrier relays just gives you so much extra protection.
The cost of shields is not as bad, in my opinion, as, again, you're given a really strong starting loadout. You have a massive crew, along with a Cyber Priest, both for his defensive utility and Cyber Priest technical checks, excuse me. And you have some nice things going for it otherwise. Doors 2 out the gate, really nice. Oxygen, life support systems, excuse me, at level 2, that's also nice. Realistically, you can take 1 power from that and use that for shields when you eventually purchase them. And then finally, the hull integrity patches, just sell those. That's an extra 18 scrap out the gate to help afford shields. It's totally manageable.
Yeah, it's an intimidating thing to start out with, but once you kind of get into the groove of what it asks of you, it's got just a nice thing. And once you're set up, it's a very flexible ship. I feel like it's a good A tier ship. That's kind of where I...
Yeah, I'd put it in A. It just has so much going for it, even outside of the lack of shields.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then we get on to Heavy Frigate C. This ship...
The most broken ship in the game.
Okay, we'll talk about that, because I might disagree with that a little bit. It's definitely
Right.
very strong. But it starts out with a Fusillade 1, which is, again, sort of your shotgun weapon. It fires 3 shots, but those can miss. You do also have the Kinetic Lance, which creates breaches in the room and stun and slows that crew that are hit by it. It gets 2 charges per jump and deals 1 damage. You also get the Corsair as a crew member and an Arborant, which has a Psychic Shriek as its starting spell, which is able to stun enemy crew. On top of that, it has Seraphic Resonators, which makes it so your lances, when they shoot, will instantly charge another weapon, which combined with your Fusillade means that you can very quickly rattle off a lot of shots very quickly in a fight. And then adding on top of even that, you also have a Siege Bombardment if you need that little bit of extra firepower. But Ciggy, how about you lead this one and talk about this ship a little bit?
Yeah, so you're able to get, first off, a free shot right out the gates with the Kinetic Lance there, which immediately charges your Fusillade 1. You're able to get a strong starting volley right out the gate. And then on top of that, if you wait for the Fusillade 1 to charge, the Kinetic Lance, without firing the Kinetic Lance as it charges, you can get a 7-shot volley really, really quick. So, not the best explanation of the Seraphic build there, but you are able to dump an insane amount of damage onto the enemy ship right out the gate and sustain that insane amount of damage over time. If you're able to get more lances, that power level just increases another notch, because you can start out with essentially an 8-shot volley, where you fire 1 lance, get the Fusillade shot, fire the other lance, get another Fusillade shot, and it just builds on itself to an insane degree that you are just melting through enemy ships really throughout the entire game.
Yep, and plus, like the ship crew ain't bad either. Corsair and Arborant are decent enough crew members, and you even have door 2s, which means that you can kind of control where enemies go. So, like, you don't have to worry about, like, being boarded or anything like that. You can relatively handle most early boardings and all that. So, like you said, the ship's got a lot of potential. I think we both agree that this is easily S tier.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd place it as the best ship. I think there's one other that we'll get to in a little bit that might outclass it.
The one other thing that we glossed over is that on top of the very strong Seraphic build it has going for it, it also has Siege Bombard as well. It doesn't even need that to be really, really strong, but it has that to further trivialize the mini-boss and as a really powerful tool against the boss itself. So it just has everything going for it. No particular weaknesses. It doesn't have boarding, which, kind of sucks, but there are plenty of ships that don't have boarding and are still extremely strong. So
yeah, I mean, definitely, like, it's easily top 2 in the game. It's like, if you are looking to win, this is an extremely strong ship to do so with.
yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, and now we can move on to the Explorator series. Starting out with Explorator A, this ship starts out with a Displacement Field Emitter, which is a 1-shot weapon that if it hits a room, it'll teleport all crew to the opposing ship. So essentially it can kidnap like enemy crew members if you want to do that. It can also notably hit chests, meaning you can immediately steal chests from the enemy ship and get the content of that loot. And then it also contains the Penetrator, which is a weapon that only fires one shot, but is able to pierce a layer of shields, meaning that it can get its 2 damage in even through 1 layer of shields, allowing the ship to actually have a bit more firepower than it might initially appear. On top of that, the crew is a Hex Priest, which is a pretty strong crew member due to the fact that the Technovirus disables the ability of enemies to repair a system. You also have 2 Combat Husks, which are pretty good fighters, at least in terms of dealing with like enemy borders, and you even get a random generic Husk for a 4th crew member.
A cherry on top.
Yep, and then you get the Circadian Stabilizer as a module, which just gives you essentially double the amount of healing per jump, going from 15% up to an extra 15, resulting in 30% of health restored every jump. Overall, this is like a this is a very functional ship. It's got some very nice things going for it, but I think probably the biggest knock against it is that the armaments do need to be like worked on in order to really bring them up.
Fully agreed. The Penetrator is something that you can carry forward basically through the entire game. Any 1-power, 1-shot armament is nice to have in your salvo, though that Penetrator needs to go by Sector 2 ideally. It just has anti-synergy for actually breaking shields, and 2 power for 1 shot, even if it is 2 power, isn't the best in my opinion. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's a weapon that like it just doesn't like scale against like enemies that start getting 3 to 4 shields, because everything else will hit the shield and then you get 1-2 damage shot through, which pretty.
And you have to pray to time it when it either has 0 shields or 1 shield layer.
Mm-hmm. And it's just the power can be better used elsewhere. There's other weapons, like a thunder cannon essentially does this for half the power, which is a lot better. And of course there is also like the layout's a bit weird. Like the fact that weapons are all the way back in the ass of the ship is a little awkward.
More a tail, but yes.
Yeah. It's just like everything, the crew itself is very nice, as was stated. Combat Husks are good fighters. They're not going to like beat a knight or anything like that, but they can easily deal with most summons due to their very high DPS. And a Hex Priest is always really, really strong. Like Hex Priests are like super good because they can just keep like enemy shields permanently broken. They can disable armaments. They can disable demon hearts on like possessed ships. Like there's a lot of utility that the Hex Priest brings to wherever they show up.
For sure. This is a ship that just really, really wants boarding.
Mm-hmm.
You have strong enough borders with the Combat Husks. You have Circadian Stabilizer so they can fight for a little bit longer. If you're able to get boarding, this ship, takes off to a significant degree.
Absolutely. So, with that said, we feeling like an A tier for this?
I would put top of B.
Top of B. Ooh. Alrighty. Yeah, I can definitely see that because of the armaments issue. Like, you really gotta find something to augment that penetrator.
Yeah. Or find a way to get boarding.
It's either like high B, low A,
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I could see an argument for a very low A, like very bottom of A. But moving on, for me, this is the best ship in the game, Explorator B. Explorator B has a starting loadout of a Storm Cannon 2, which is that 3-shot weapon for 2 power, and a Heavy Ion Lance. It is a 1-power lance that has a 5 ion damage shot with 2 charges per jump. The starting crew are 2 Flux Priests, which are horrible fighters, but provide power and have extra repair speed on the system they are essentially in the room with. So they can provide free power. On top of this, one of the best things about this ship is the Assault Cyborg, which is one of, if not the best unit in the game, as it is...
I would just say the best unit in the game, full stop.
Yeah, because it starts with a translocator built into it, meaning that it can instantly board the enemy ship. It is a massive unit on par with most knights, and it also has the ability to essentially suppress a system in the room that it's in, meaning that like it can deal 1 ion damage while it's in a room. The only thing that this ship doesn't have is that it does not have a door system on it, but it does have heat shielding, which means fires deal half the amount of damage to systems, meaning they take twice as long to actually tick over and damage a system. But yeah,
Even the one drawback or weakness to this ship, it has a workaround of sorts to mitigate the impact of the lack of a door system.
Yeah, you can run people into rooms, and if they're in the room, they can actually open and close doors. So if with a bit of micro, you can still vent fires and whatnot if you really need to. But yeah,
I feel you're ultimately going to want to do that because while the flex priests, excuse me, aren't super squishy, they aren't the most durable. They can't put out too many fires before they are in danger.
yeah, definitely. But they do have suffocation and poison resistance, so they don't die as quickly to those things, at least. And if they do die, there is the funny thing of they blow up for 35 damage, which, you know, could be a valiant sacrifice.
They are terrifying suicide bombers.
Yeah,
nowadays.
you can. They're quite scary, or you know, good if you need like a desperate, like I need to clear a room of enemies, in desperation. Yeah. But really, the big things is the armaments are. I would say this is the best armament starting in the game. Heavy ion lance is the one of the best things. Like, it is a weapon that is so good that it essentially solves the question of like, how are you bringing down shields on enemy ships? Heavy ion lance does it pretty much on its own. Storm 2 is good enough to go through an entire game. It's just like such a good.
It's definitely one of the best armaments in the game.
Yeah, so good for what it costs, and then just having innate boarding with one of the with the best unit in the game. It's like, really, this ship needs to pay a tax to get doors, and then, in my opinion, it's the best ship in the game. I know heavy. I know you might disagree with the heavy sea fighting for that position, but I think
I feel heavy sea just has so many stupid things going for it that it pushes it into that top spot. But obviously, this is it's number 2 on my rankings as well.
Yeah, I personally have them flipped, but yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to really debate this. It's easily, this is an S tier. This is at least top 2. Depends probably on personal opinion where it exactly lies, but it is just one of the strongest ships in the entire game.
Yeah. One last thing, and one really good synergy that it has baked in, is your heavy ion lance is something that you're relying on to hit shields. And if those shots miss, you just hate your life. However, you can use your assault cyborg to immediately board into the command throne and drop it 1 level, and on top of that, distract the pilot, increasing your chances of actually landing that shot. So while it's no Wrath of Angels, it has tools built in to make its strengths even stronger.
Yeah, and essentially once a heavy ion lance hits, the fight's generally over if you have anything alongside the Storm Cannon 2, because you're just able to volley into whatever, break a ton of stuff, and the shields won't come back on. You know, either you'll break them before they get back on, or you've killed the enemy ship. And plus, boarding is also really good. Like, Exile on this ship is, in my opinion, like the single best start you can do, because you immediately have 2 amazing boarders right away, you know, on top of insane armaments. It's just, there's so much that this ship has going for it. It's extremely, extremely strong.
Agreed.
Moving on to Explorator C. This ship starts with a Energy Beam 1, which is the very quick firing beam with a very short length, an Ion Tunneler, which is kind of like, it's an interesting weapon. It's sort of like a Fusillade, but with ion damage, and it also ignores shields, meaning that whatever room it hits, it's very likely to ion that system for at least 1 or 2 levels. And then it also has a Radium Blaster 2 on it, which is the very high damage crew weapon, but it also has Carnage optics, meaning that if your sensors are active, then you are able to deal an additional 15 damage whenever your weapons hit a room with enemy units in it. So, for example, Radiant Blaster 2 could deal 45 damage per shot. The energy beams are able to deal 15 damage to crew members that it hits. Your crew is a Cyber Priest with that Positron barrier we talked about before, a basic Engineer, which has the bonus repair speed, and a standard Husk. This is an interesting ship because it's one of the ships that is actually capable of killing enemy crew as long as you have that Carnage optics active. Like, you can kill enemy ships without ever setting foot on them, which not a lot of ships can actually do.
The closest thing to that is probably Relic C, where you're just bombarding them with so much poison. But Explorator C, it's definitely built for that armament-based crew killing strategy loadout.
Yeah, and notably, it does not hit your own ship. You got to be careful of Radiant Blaster damaging your own guys, but like, you can energy beam one in a room where all of your crew members are fighting, and your Carnage Optics won't actually kill your own crew members. So this ship can work fairly well with boarding as well, and you get a lot of DPS if you're able to keep that Carnage Optics active.
Which it should be. You're at sensors 2, and most of the time, you're fighting enemy ships that have sensors 2. You can just man your own sensors. If they have sensors 3, as long as it isn't manned, yours is still up. It just needs to be at sensors 2 for it to reliably be up, in my experience.
Yeah. Ion Tunneler is also just like a good ion weapon throughout a game. It's potentially up, usually at least 2 ion damage, if not upwards of 3 if all the shots hit. Little slow to charge, but it's a pretty decent ion weapon, so it's not that hard to add like any decent weapon into this, and then you have a pretty solid firepower base.
Yeah, and you're even able to get a full ion build relatively quickly if you get another ion tunneler, a twin disruptor, or even a regular disruptor. That's enough to perma-ionize shields there.
Yep. And then I would say the crew is maybe a smidge weak to summons because you have the Engineer and the Husk, which are both a bit squishy. But you do at least have the Cyber Priest alongside your commander to rely on. So, I don't have, I think that the ship's overall fairly well-rounded as long as you lean into that Carnage optics and can, really make sure you're trying to get good value out of it. But don't over-invest into it. You want to find boarding, you want to find good weapons and more crew and all that. But
absolutely.
I think it's like a pretty solid ship overall. I feel like it's above Explorator A in terms of its overall.
100%.
Definitely not better than B, but I feel like A tier is a pretty good spot for it.
Yeah, like dead center of A tier is about where I'd put Explorator C.
Yep, I agree. Now we can move on to the Overseer series. Overseer is a ship that starts out with a Thunder Cannon, which is a one-shot 1-power weapon that deals 2 damage, alongside a Twin Disruptor, which is 2 ion shots for 2 power. The crew is a Stygian Worm, which is it cannot man or repair systems, but will occasionally spawn tentacles that are able to do that. It is also immune to suffocation. You also have a Blood Witch.
It's a demonic commando, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. And then it can summon extra stuff to either fight or do whatever. You have the Blood Witch, which is able to summon a Thrall and is otherwise a fairly cheap Psyker unit. Not the greatest fighter by any means, but has decent utility with a tool slot and that Psyker slot you can replace the summon Thrall with. And then you also have the Ritualist, who has the Coagulate ability, which allows you to cast a projectile that will repair a system, and then if a Thrall is sacrificed, you get an additional repair on it. The ship also comes with a Pain Engine, giving all Blood Cultist units 10 additional HP. Note that the Stygian Worm and the Tentacles summoned are demonic. They are not Blood Cult, so they do not benefit from the bonus health. However, really the thing that the ship stands out for is the fact that it starts with a Hull Reaper. which is a beam weapon that you can spend 1 munition to fire, and it will cut across enemy ships, and as it deals damage, it repairs your own ship. This is
Yeah,
just... Go ahead.
yeah, you have the Shield Charger as the best defensive system in the game, and then you have the Hull Reaper as arguably the best offensive system in the game. So just off of that, it's a very strong ship.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really not a lot to complain about. The armaments themselves are good. Twin Disruptor is a great ion weapon. Thunder Cannon's a very cost-effective damage dealer that pairs well with the Hull Reaper. You essentially,
Exactly.
the Blood Witch and the Ritualist combine to give you good Psyker coverage on top of, like, just being able to, like, essentially carry a free repair drone every fight if you really need it.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot to really criticize the ship for. Especially since you can now control the Stygian worm. Previously you couldn't, which made it a bit awkward. If, like, enemy crews boarded, they might, fight and kill the worm or whatever. And otherwise your crew isn't great at fighting. But, nowadays I think it's like, this is just a really solid ship. There's great offense, good enough defense. It's got a lot of flexibility in it.
You're able to get chests off of the Summon Thrall from the Blood Witch there as well. It really doesn't have many, if any, weaknesses. It's just a strong ship.
Yeah. I think it's a very solid, like, higher A tier ship.
I personally put it, like, at the absolute bottom of S tier. Again, just
Yeah,
off
I
of that
could
Hull
see...
Reaper, just off
Yeah,
of that
the
consistency.
Hull Reaper does probably push it up to S tier. Yeah, there's not a lot that really goes wrong with Overseer A. It's just one of those consistently great ships.
Exactly.
Moving on to Overseer B. This is a very interesting ship. It has no armament system to speak of. Instead, it has a single missile with the siege missiles, which is a pretty good missile as it deals 2 damage per shot for 1 munition. It also can even deal double damage to systemless rooms. The ship has 3 crew members, a Husk, a Blood Witch, and the Piece de Resistance, the Elder Blood Mage, who is not only a very powerful Psyker, but also has the Blood Spear, which is a Soul Spear, meaning he can cast it to deal 1 damage to a target room. But also, if you sacrifice a Thrall, when this ability is utilized, it'll automatically do so. The cooldown goes from 60 seconds to a mere 3 seconds. And this pairs amazingly well with the Thrall Pit that is starting on this ship. Essentially, this ship is Elder Blood Mage the ship.
Yeah. A Blood Spear build right out the gate.
Provides a lot of consistent damage since enemies cannot dodge Blood Spears or any psychic abilities. The Elder Blood Mage himself is also a really good fighter. He's got a great body on him.
For sure. Now, the one caveat here is you said that the enemy ships aren't able to dodge Blood Spear bolts. They are able to block them with moves like Mind Shield. So that is the kind of Achilles heel of this ship, where if you get a enemy ship that has a ton of aberrants with Mind Shield, or even an Imperial ship with a single Acolyte in his Mind Shield, it's not necessarily stonewalled, but it does put a damper on an otherwise pretty strong setup and build.
Yeah.
You kind of want commanders like Exile, ideally, or even Doomweaver, just to get onto the enemy ship to disturb those Mind Shields if you come across a Mind Shield boat. Excuse me.
Yeah, definitely. I can really slow you down, especially because often early on you want to be spending a lot of scrap on getting the Thrall Pit maxed out, because at level 3 you get 7 seconds to get a Thrall, which is very good for the cooldown. Essentially, every 7 seconds you'll be launching a Blood Spear at that point.
Yeah. And then you have the Blood Witch to provide an extra Thrall now and again.
Yeah, but definitely you want to find boarding early on. That's a high priority. And once you do, usually this ship comes together very nice. Uh,
Agreed.
Especially
Agreed.
because you can just ignore shields almost entirely early on. Like, there's nothing in your systems will get blocked by shields, so you can not have to worry about those. You can even do runs without any armaments. You can just focus on boarding, psyker abilities and your missile system, and never buy armaments.
Yeah, it's a ship that has more than enough going for it that even though it is a pretty gimmicky ship with its build, it's still strong.
Then I feel like an A tier for this one. Maybe not
Yeah,
S tier because, like you said, a couple certain fights can be pretty nasty. But like once you get it set up, it's just rock solid,
yeah, it's not the most versatile ship, but in the niche it carves out for itself, it's very strong. So I would definitely put it in A as well.
right? And
Middle of the
then,
pack on A,
mm-hmm.
probably.
And then for Overseer C, this is a pretty interesting ship. So its starting armament
That's
is
one way
a
of putting it.
yeah, starts with a Devastator beam, which is a 3 power weapon with shield piercing, and it does 2 damage per room it hits, making it one of the most powerful beams out there. Now, if it has to pierce shields, it does deal less damage. So 1 level of shields mean this only deals 1 damage. Uh, but overall, it can be potentially a very strong weapon overall. The crew is also a seduced mystic, which is essentially just a blood witch with a different name.
Rebranded Blood Witch.
Yes.
She's going through a phase.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, notably, she does carry a chaos engine, meaning that you do have innate boarding, because you need just take that off of her and put it on your commander or whoever has a tool slot on them. And then you also have an enslaved fiend, which is a demonic being with fairly strong stats overall and spawns fleshlings periodically, which are very tiny, uncontrollable kamikazes on this ship, because this ship
Basically.
uniquely has terminus bands, which causes anytime a friendly crew member dies, it explodes for 10 damage, hitting all enemies in that room. The ship also does start with a thrall pit innately. This ship is one of those ships that if you run into you really have to rely on that chaos engine, because if you run into like an enemy ship that has level 2 shields early on, it will just stonewall your entire armaments.
Yeah.
Also, notably, something before I forget, this ship does not have sensors to start with, so you are completely blind outside of the rooms that has your crew members on it.
It's miserable.
Yeah, overall, it's one of those ships that it's got interesting ideas, but in reality, it's the ideas don't work out well enough. They're slow, like trying to summon thralls and using the fleshlings to blow up the enemy crew is not very viable. You
It's just
are
too slow.
mm-hmm. It's very, very
It's a
slow.
good idea, but it's just too slow. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also, like we said, the Devastator beam. It's a lot of power. You're going to be paying a lot of scrap early on to try to augment it to where you might as well just sell the Devastator beam and go for better armaments. Uh,
Or more consistent armaments.
yeah. Because you could get like a Storm 2 and an Ion weapon for the same amount of power. And it's
Yeah.
just like, though that's going to get you so much more mileage, so much more consistent damage. You know, uh, you have to
If
buy
you are able to
sensors.
get relatively cheap uh, shield poppers like a Mag Pulse 1 or a Flare Cannon or even like a Retributor 2 or Putrefactor 2, it does become pretty viable because
Mm-hmm.
then you are consistently popping those double shield layers and getting full Devastator damage. But if you're not able to get that to work, you are just stonewalled by Sector 3, certain fights in Sector 2. It just sucks.
Or even Sector 1. Like, I've had runs where my first jump is against level 2 shields. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, that's fun.
it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Uh, yeah, it's definitely There is some fun things that the ship does. Like, you can very much lean into a summon build on this ship once you get past that early rough start, because Terminus Bands really amps up the value of, like, necromancers and anything that summons a lot of stuff. So the ship can have some fun summon builds, uh,
If you luck
especially.
into a Blood Spear early on, you
Mhm.
essentially have Overseer B at
Yeah,
that point.
pretty much.
So it's not as though there aren't routes that the ship can take. It's just if you cannot get that route going by middle of Sector 2 and definitely by Sector 3, just restart.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is a ship that probably sits like C tier, probably.
Yeah, I'd put it C as well.
You know, it's not horrific. It's not as bad as a couple other ships, but it's definitely like on the weak side, and it's just got too many issues to really put it any higher.
It has its strengths, but it has its critical flaws.
Hmm. Then we get on to everybody's favorite ship, Ancient A. Ancient A is
Everyone's favorite indeed.
yes.
Yes.
Ancient A starts with two missile schematics: a saber missile, which is the 2 damage missile for 1 munition cost, and a displacement bomb, allowing you. This is a missile that, when fired, deals 1 damage, and then teleports all crew in target room to the opposing ship. Notably, it can even hit your own ship, meaning you can trade 1 hull health to Chaos Warp a room over to the enemy ship. On top of this, the ship also starts with a translocator, giving you a innate boarding option. The crew starts out as 1 servo husk alongside 1 arborant, which carries a soul spear, giving you a little bit of extra damage. On top of this, you also have the inertia probe, which allows you to, if your sensors are active, meaning you have at least a higher level sensors, the enemy loses.
Or equal.
Yeah, or equal, then the enemy will lose 10% of their evasion. Now, notably, Ancient A is the only ship to start with 2 missile systems, which means that you can be firing 2 missiles at once. Something only possible currently on Ancient A. But, oh boy, Ancient A has been a topic for a while. Probably the worst ship in the game for a long, long time. But
Agreed.
it's gotten
Agreed.
tons of buffs, and even now it's probably not much better than the worst ship, but
I would honestly put it above Relic B, kind of jumping ahead to the
oh
rankings,
my god.
but not by a whole lot.
Yeah.
It does have some good things going for it that make its gimmick build actually viable. The inertial probe is typically going to be up because you're at sensors 2. You're most likely going to be dropping people's evasion, so you're able to hit them with, actually reliably hit them with your missiles. The translocator there, you're generally going to want to pick a commander that has a tool slot, slap it on them, and use them to cause a bit of havoc, cause a bit of distraction on the enemy ship. It's really good if you board onto the command throne before your missile volleys to, again, make sure they hit. So it's a ship that has a few things going for it. It's just the gimmick of missiles only is, only so sustainable. You need to be purchasing munitions. You might be heading to shipyards to scavenge munitions, that sort of thing, just to make sure your offenses are alive and active. So it
Hmm.
has its place. It's where it needs to be now in terms of its earliest incarnations where it was unplayable, frankly.
Yeah. I
But it's still a challenging ship.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is that because you have double missiles, it's hard to pick up other systems to augment your offense as much. Like getting a Hall
That's true.
Reaper or getting a siege system, those things become very expensive and they tax the same resource. So it's hard to like
Well, they not only become expensive, they become not particularly usable because you already have missiles which penetrate shields. Realistically, you aren't going to be targeting shields, you're going to be using
mhm,
them to hit the offensive systems on the enemy ship.
yeah.
Armaments, of course, but maybe their Hull Reaper, maybe their Siege Beam, maybe their Missile Bay, that sort of thing. So you are frozen out of a lot of powerful systems. A little bit of an addendum to Overseer B. That ship kind of has the same problem where you're typically not getting those systems. You're just throwing your blood spears at armaments and calling it a day. So demerit on that ship, demerit on this ship, and unlike Overseer B, Ancient A doesn't have the same power level or reliability in its double missile-based shtick
Yeah.
as with the blood spear setup.
Yeah, Blood Spheres is just so much more consistent because it never misses and it overall has like a higher DPS. So at least it's got like that going for it. Whereas this, it's just like, okay, I guess, you pretty much are forced to buy armaments and have to build armaments up. And I
I would not agree with that. You don't need armaments on this ship. It's if anything, the lack of armaments is annoying because it takes up a slot in system shops. The only
yeah,
system that this ship really needs slash wants slash can use is shield charger, and it's really valuable, but you're not too likely to get it just off of armaments always taking up a
yeah.
slot in system shops.
It's this is just I still feel like this ship needs like another nudge. Like it like you said, like the last patch pushed it finally above the absolute worst crap in the game. But I mean that's not high praise. I think it's the other D tier ship pretty much. It's just
I'm fine putting it in D tier. I personally I put it absolute bottom of C tier, but I think D tier is fine as well.
yeah, just the forever meme ship of you know
Yeah.
for the longest time it was like it was so much worse. Like even Relic B in its older state was still so much better than Ancient A. It was so bad. So,
Yeah.
but moving on, a much more functional ship in Ancient B. This
Off to greener pastures,
yes.
yes.
Uh, so the loadout starts out with a graviton cannon, a quick firing weapon that can also slow crew that are hit by it in the target room. You got a bolt cannon, which is another quick fire weapon, and then a kinetic lance, which notably creates multiple breaches in a room on top of slowing enemy crew. It has 2 charges per jump and deals 1 damage. The crew is made up of a Warseer, which is a Psyker with the Psychic Shriek, which is able to stun enemy crew. You get a Doom Effigy, which is a very bulky demon that doesn't deal a lot of damage, but will periodically summon skeletons on the enemy ship. And then you also have the Hex Priest, who has the Technovirus, which is always a useful way to prevent enemies from repairing. The ship also has the Graviton Field Generator, allowing you to slow enemy ships, and the module it contains is Demolisher Rounds, where your ship's weapons, when they hit a room, they will break all the doors in that room. This ship is essentially designed to cause suffocation. It is meant to create a bunch of breaches, break all the doors, and then cause the enemy crew to suffocate, being unable to repair them by being slowed down and stunned over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, how effective is that, would you say?
Honestly, pretty effective. So the typical opening strat for this ship is fire a kinetic lance, have it cause breaches in ideally a room with a lot of other rooms connecting to it on the enemy ship. All of those, all of their doors will be shattered, and they will also start draining oxygen. From there, you're going to have enemies stream in to try and repair the breaches, and you stun them with your Warseer. That doesn't delay, it prolongs the suffocation throughout a lot of the ship, and then the cherry on top is the skeletons from the Doom effigy there. So you're able to get a pretty crazy amount of suffocation damage and just regular damage off of the skeletons. Oh, I should also mention the Graviton Field Generator. You can use that to slow the enemies coming in to repair the breaches, or slow the enemy as they crawl into the rooms with the skeletons and get rattled. So
Mm-hmm.
it has a really interesting starting setup along those lines, but it's not super sustainable. By Sector 3, that strategy starts to attenuate as you get more enemy crew, as the enemy crew gets a little bit stronger. It's still viable, but by that point, you're going to want to augment your setup with boarding, augment it with armaments, though you are given plenty of time to set that up by Sector 3.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, and demolisher rounds are still useful. Being able to break doors with your armaments is always got a little bit of value. Even if it's just to like
Agreed.
let you get into important systems, it allows you to move around enemy ships a bit easier. So like there is always that utility that the ship kind of contains. But yeah, definitely you need to like find better weapons to make sure you don't fall behind in the arms race, because relying just on that suffocation plan is not going to work when there's like 12 units on the enemy ship. There's just, especially if it's like techno cult stuff with the suffocation resistance, there's
Yeah,
stuff that can make that hard to pull off. But the crew's overall pretty good as well. Hex Priest is
agreed.
always great. You get a Psyker. The Doom effigy's not like, the fact you still can't like control him is a bit awkward. But it is what it is.
It has suffocation immunity at the very least.
Yeah, at least it
so
won't do
you're
that.
able to
but,
put out fires. You're able to
yeah,
snuff out poison by just draining the oxygen in the room.
yeah. Usually he doesn't die because he got so much health. But there have been times I've like lost him in a run because he like keeps standing in fire or poison or whatever. But
Yeah,
regardless, it's
the
still,
AI is questionable.
yeah, yeah. They just don't care. They do not care. But yeah, overall, it's, I think, like a fine ship. I kind of feel a B on this one.
I would put it in A personally.
Okay. Yeah, we
Probably
can
lower on the A, but
low
if you want to
A,
put
you
it in
think?
like top of B,
Yeah,
that's
I was just thinking
reasonable.
top of B because it's like the suffocation's nice, but I don't know. It feels like one of those ships that it's like, like it kind of reminds me
It
of
doesn't
like,
have enough going for it otherwise.
yeah, like, because I think if we look at like what we put into A, we have like Relic C and like ships like that are also in B, and I think that's kind of for me. But yeah, we mostly agree. It's like high B, low A is where it
Yeah.
sits.
Yeah.
Moving on to Ancient Sea. Ancient Sea is a ship that starts with an Energy Beam 2, which is a very long beam that requires 2 power, and a Magnetic Pulse 1, which is the ever useful Shield Stripper. You also have the Imperial Proselyte, which is essentially just an Imperial Acolyte that starts with a Chaos Rift instead of a Force Shield, allowing you to have innate boarding. On top of that, you also have the Deceiver, which is a Mouth of Oriac that carries the Treasonous Whispers, allowing you to mind control an enemy crew member. You also have Spectral Drives, which your ship is able to dodge spells using the Evasion stat, giving you a modest chance to dodge stuff. The ship also starts with a Husk Rack to give you additional crew. But overall, it's a weird ship, which is kind
It's
of
a
like,
weird ship, but it's a pretty good ship.
yeah, it's like the armament is pretty good. Magnetic Pulse is always a great shield stripper, and Energy Beam 2 is going to deal a lot of damage whenever it gets to fire off. It's pretty
Yeah,
easy to
for
like
sure.
augment that with like one other decent weapon, and you got pretty good firepower coming out of the ship. Uh,
Yeah.
you got a lot of
Or just
psyker.
swapping the energy beam 2 for some other slightly
Yeah,
more
that's
reliable or conventional
yeah.
armament.
You find a storm cannon too, and this is a great ship to run around with. It's
Yeah.
pretty flexible in that regard. Your crew is pretty good actually. Like you have psychers if you need them. They have boarding. They have the Deceiver himself is just like honestly a pretty good body. Good health, decent DPS. I believe they get a weapon slot as well. So
They have a weapon slot and a tool slot.
yeah, oh yeah, they got the tool slot. Yeah, so like it's honestly a pretty great body. Like you can put a shield on him and like a weapon, and he'll be a decent enough boarder for the early game. alongside your
Early into
commander.
mid game, they
Hmm.
are usable, especially if you get them a shield. Like
Yeah.
a tower shield would go insane on them. Even an Imperial Aegis or a tactical shield is enough to bring them into the upper rungs of borders, in my opinion.
Absolutely. The
And
Husk
then on
Rack
top of
is
that, you're augment exactly where I was going.
yeah,
On top of that, you're augmenting your boarding with the Husk Rack and then beaming them onto the ship with Chaos Rift.
yeah,
So
yeah. So you can get a little bit of extra mileage out of that. It's maybe not the most like relevant thing because Huskrak is still just kind of in a weird spot, but it like doesn't hurt to have it. You know, uh,
yeah,
you're not going to be like upset that you have some free bodies to either throw on the enemy ship or to man systems or help repair stuff. It eases the pressure of needing like as much crew early on, so you can focus on getting like better armaments or crucial systems. uh Plus spectral drives is always just nice. It makes upgrading engines like okay. uh
I Spectral Drive. I feel that you rank Spectral Drives a bit higher than I would. It's there. It's nice. It's not really going to tilt the odds in your favor
yeah,
to a
definitely
significant degree.
not.
It's just kind of nice to have that as a
Yeah, it's just,
possibility
yeah,
to
sometimes
dodge
getting
the
to
occasional ghoul summon
hmm
or dodge the occasional soul storm, that sort of thing.
hmm yeah, I mean, because you generally do like to upgrade your shields or your engines to like level 3 anyway, but
Yeah.
you could actually like power it, because having like 15-20% to dodge spells doesn't hurt. Just can sometimes ease a little bit of pressure off you. But
Yeah.
placement wise, I think Ancient Seas probably kind of in the same spot as Ancient B, so sort of like high B, low A.
I honestly put it in pretty high A.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The Chaos Rift, I mean, you have boarding right out the gate. Chaos Rift boarding isn't perfect, but you can definitely work around it. And then coupled with the fact that you're spamming sub husks over there, you're able to get a pretty decent amount of attrition damage and have it actually work. Oh, there's also the Treasonous Whispers, which is valuable in that attrition damage because you have a singular unit mind controlled and they're dealing damage to enemy crew. That allied enemy crew is taking damage as well. So it all meshes together really, really well in terms of that attrition boarding that I rank it pretty high just off of that.
Okay.
The only
Yeah.
drawback to this ship, in my opinion, is its armaments, where Energy Beam 2 isn't that great. You're going to want to swap that out at some point, most likely. But outside of that, it's all pros.
Okay, yeah, we could absolutely do A for this one. So that leads us on to the Oblivion cruisers. So the Oblivion cruisers, Oblivion A starts out with a Hull Ripper, 1, which is a 2-shot for 2 power weapon that deals double damage if it hits systemless rooms, so it can deal up to 4 damage. Otherwise, it's just 2 shots. You get a bolt cannon, and then you also get the Blight Bomb, which is a 1-shot or deals 1 damage when it hits and creates a ton of poison clouds, often in multiple rooms, the one it hits alongside those nearby. The crew is very interesting. You have 2 Ghoul Magus, which are starting with different spells. One starts with an Aetheric Gate, which allows it to teleport itself and nearby crew onto the enemy ship. You have one that starts with a Noxious Blast, which casts a poisonous projectile. You also have 2 Atrophied, which are interesting zombie undead. They have fairly good stats overall, but they move very slowly and are more so of a crew manning systems. Your modules start with the Obscene Organ, which gives all of your demonic plus 10 HP and 1 additional DPS, which means all of these undead that you have in your crew are at least decent in health and attack power. Uh, and the ship also, for one reason or another, starts with 4 antidotes on its starting loadout. This
It's a
is
ship that relies heavily on poison and generates a lot of poison, so it's
yeah.
there for commanders that don't have poison immunity, regular crew,
Hmm.
non-demonics that don't have poison immunity,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
I'll be honest, like even if this ship is like on paper decent, this is like one ship I don't like. It's like for whatever reason this is not a ship for me and I'm not a big fan of it.
The lack of sensors on this ship probably doesn't help as well,
Yeah, that
so I
I
do
don't
get it on
like
that front.
that. I don't like the crew. I'm not a fan of how the crew plays out. The Ghoul Magus, everything moves super slowly. They have penalties to like repair speed or, it's just something about this ship doesn't click with me and I'm not a big fan of it. Even though on paper it's got a 3-shot weapons, it starts with a good missile. Obscene Organ is a really good thing for summons and whatnot. But I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of this ship.
So if it was just that, I'd probably be with you. However, you're able to do some really interesting things with the Ghoul Magus with Etheric Gate, because the other Ghoul Magus has Noxious Blast. One of the things you're able to do is teleport the Etheric Gate Ghoul Magus and probably your commander, or really any of your boarders, onto the enemy ship, and then shoot Noxious Blast on the room that you're fighting in. This causes the Ghoul Magus with Etheric Gate to slowly heal in that room. You're poisoning all the enemies as well. So your Etheric Gate Transport Ghoul Magus is surprisingly tanky, and they can always heal after every engagement. So you're going in with the deceptively durable 20 HP that it has just off of that. Caveat here is that you typically want to have a commander with poison immunity. So this would be white. That's the, you know, this is the most white coated ship imaginable just off of that. But you can even get by with Assassin, with Barbarian, because he's immune to everything. And even Paladin is a slight option, as his Embolden gives you 15 seconds of immunity to those poison clouds, and juices up your Etheric Gates Ghoul Magus as well. So because of the unique boarding setup you can get going, I do regard this ship a bit higher than perhaps you do. But if you're going with a commander that doesn't have poison immunity, or you aren't comfortable or don't like that sort of boarding strat, I get not being too big a fan of this ship.
Yeah, I'd be curious, where would you place this on a tier list? Where would you put it on average, factoring in the commanders that are like good for it, but also the ones that are maybe less good for it?
That's fair. I'd probably put it top of B.
Yeah, I'd say B tier if we're compromising. If I was just doing this list based on my personal feelings, I'd put it like C tier.
Yeah, I get that.
It's not the ship for me. This is like the personal. I don't like this ship, but I'm not gonna let that.
Nothing wrong with being a little biased against a ship here or two. I get it.
Yeah.
Not all of these ships are for everyone.
But this is the one that just does not click for me. But
I
I'm
get you.
trying to be objective here, so yeah, I think B tier is probably like reasonable.
It's reasonable. Yeah.
Moving on to Oblivion B. This ship starts out with a bolt cannon, the displacement field emitter, which is the one that allows you to essentially steal enemy crew members or crates when it hits a room, and then a warp lance, which is a 1 damage lance that requires 1 power and has 2 charges per jump, and when it hits a room, it creates multiple warp breaches. Now, warp breaches are breaches that will summon demons over time, meaning that you can potentially flood an enemy ship with demons if they cannot get it repaired in time. Your crew starts out with a Gristlehound, which is a 45 health and 3 DPS hound that you are able to control. It has fire resistance, suffocation immunity, and fear, which allows it to fear nearby enemies. You have a Blood Priest, which is able to cast a 10 damage projectile that can potentially create thralls if those enemy units die to it. And then a Gladiatrix that can summon a hound themselves, and also has the passive to reduce enemy DPS. Modules. for essential flavor, has Carnivore Hatch. Uh, in theory, if enemies are fighting in the launch bay room, then you can trigger this to deal 140 damage to them when loading them up. So potentially able to one-shot everything in the game. You're never going to realistically do that, though. Now, one thing to note is that you do start with a launch base, so you have innate boarding on this ship. It's a interesting ship because it's got a lot going for it, but some of it is definitely a bit weird, and it kind of has limits as to where a lot of that stuff goes, in my opinion.
So, I'm largely with you there. Getting this out of the way first off, you have the Carnivore Hatch gimmick, which it sets it up reasonably well. You have the displacement field emitter to get enemies onto your ship. You're able to vent them into the launch bay directly to its left, or if you have suffocation immune enemies, you can actually use the Gristlehound to fear them into that room. So you're able to set up the Carnivore Hatch. You have all the tools, I should say, to set up the Carnivore Hatch play, but it takes a while to actually set it up, and the payoff is pretty limited. You're just killing the enemy. You can do that. There are so many different ways you can go about actually killing the enemy that trying to get a free insta-kill off of the Carnivore Hatch, the juice is not worth the squeeze for that.
Yeah, it's definitely, and there are like good things. Like you have 2 psychers to start on this ship, so you have that flexibility.
All the other elements to this ship is pretty good. 2 psyker slots, you're able to get blood cult checks, you're able to get war cult checks. You have doors too as well, which is,
yeah, that helps a lot.
I'm not going to say it was unnecessary, but it does help a whole lot for a pretty compact ship with not the strongest crew out there. With that said, the Gristlehound is pretty good for boarding. It's able to sabotage, it's immune to suffocation. You can augment that boarding operation with the Gladiatrix's Hound as well, which is just going to die anyway, so it's a free body to take damage as the Gristlehound deals more proper damage. And the Warp Lance is extremely powerful in causing a ton of breaches, potentially causing a bunch of demonic crew to spawn on the enemy ship. The suffocation immunity of the Gristlehound, along with the regular Hound from the Gladiatrix, can be really good in that setting because you can fight in a anoxic room, have the enemy choke out as your 2 boarders are immune to suffocation, and the Blood Priest's Blood Bolt, Blood Curse, there we go, is just another way of getting more damage on the enemy ship, more potential crew off of the thralls. It has a lot of tools that synergize pretty well.
Yeah, pretty much I'd say the only thing is that the ship kind of needs early healing. Like, because the boarders, like, when you're boarding early on, your guys are pretty squishy. Like, the Gristlehound can have equipment, so, like, that 45 health starts to become a detriment as you face stronger crew members. The Gladiatrix, you really need to get a shield on them if you're going to have them board at all. You do obviously have your commander, who's always good, but he can't do all of the work. It's...
Roughneck, I find, is pretty good on this ship.
Yeah,
off of his
because the Warp
immunity.
Lance... Because you really, really keep that Warp Lance. Like, if you can get those demons to spawn, often that is the death of most ships. Like, because once a couple demons spawn, they're not able to kill enough of the demons, and then another wave spawns, and usually...
It snowballs really well just off of that.
Yeah, I think Warp Lance definitely is probably one of the best features of the ship because it's a really good lance. It's just,
it makes the ship. It makes the ship, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The only other drawbacks to it is it's kind of weird to navigate with that singular 1x2 room right next to doors that connects the front and the back of the ship. And
like a
it definitely
pinch
needs
spot.
better armaments by Sector 3, ideally Sector 2. So...
Yeah,
a few drawbacks, but again, it has a fair bit going for it.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably like low A.
I'd put it high B, but if you want to put it low A, I will not.
No, we could do low B.
Will not contest
or
that
we could do high B. I mean, I think that's
high B.
I think that's a reasonable spot for it. And then that should lead us on to our final series of ships, the light destroyers. There's no Oblivion.
Pouring one out for Oblivion C in the meantime.
At some point we'll get it. You know,
Yeah.
we waited for it. It didn't happen. So now that's why this video's happening now. But
Yeah, the original plan was to do this earlier or later in 2025, but waiting for Oblivion C
yeah, it's
took us into the new year, so here we are.
2026. So alrighty. Well, Light Destroyer A starts out with quite a bit of armaments. It starts out with a graviton cannon, a quick one-shot weapon, a heavy energy lance, which is a 2-power lance that deals 2 damage per shot and has 2 charges per jump. It also has a missile system with siege missiles, which cost 1 munition and deal 2 hull damage, alongside a displacement
Or if
bomb.
you hit a systemless room as well.
That is true. There's also the displacement bomb, which is able to, again, hit your own ship and warps anybody that is hit by it into the enemy ship. The crew is a infiltrator and a servo excavator, which is a very, very big machine slave. Modules
A
wise,
chunky boy.
yes. Now, notably, he doesn't have a weapon slot, so he can't get more than 4 DPS, but he's a great tool user. You also have Wrath of Angels as your module. Your lances always hit. And that pretty much is like the thing of the ship, is that Wrath of Angels is extremely, extremely strong.
It's the designated lance ship, good lord.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much, I mean, like, Heavy Lance is pretty much going to kill most early fights for you. And even if it somehow doesn't, you have siege missiles to back it up. It's very easy to find, like, any weapon and pretty much apply it alongside the lance, and you're pretty good. You can even just stack lances for everything except the boss. You could just get, like, 2, even 3 lances, and just guaranteed nuke whatever systems you're focusing on.
Yeah.
You got good Infiltrator, which is great for checks. Good Raider also gets unique gold events for the Infiltrator, which is nice. The Servo Excavator.
That one Infiltrator check is just insane. If you're able to get that in the later sectors, and this is on T12, you'll be getting 70, 80, I think even 90 scrap off of that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Any ship that has an Infiltrator is raised heavily in my estimation just off of that. It's just a great unit to have.
Mm-hmm. And plus the Servo Excavator guarantees your board, like, you don't have to worry about, like, boarding at all, and if you find boarding, you have an excellent crew member to use for most of the run. Like, because if you put a shield on him, he's just, like, unkillable. So, like...
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's a pretty well-rounded ship. There's really not a lot that it can't do, because even worst case, even if you're playing without boarding, you just have the displacement bomb, which isn't ideal by any means, but at the very least, it's like a way to get onto the enemy ship.
I am not too fond of displacement bomb boarding at all.
Yeah.
But one of the really good uses for it is that it can grab chests on the enemy ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you are under less pressure to have Exile, Cyberfused, Doomweaver, White even to grab chests just off of that.
Yeah.
And because you have a pretty strong setup otherwise.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this is probably a pretty high A tier overall. Maybe even
I'd put it closer to middle of A, but definitely an A.
Okay, yeah, we'll stick it in A. And now we'll move on to the variant B. Light Destroyer B comes with 2 starting weapons. A Storm Cannon 1, which is 2 shots for 2 power, alongside the Inferno Fogas. Not sure.
Fogas, I believe is the pronunciation.
Gotcha. This is a 1 power weapon. Yep. This is a 1 power weapon that fires 3 projectiles that don't deal any damage, but instead spread fire on the enemy ship. Your crew consists of a single husk alongside a Centurion, one of the only 2 ships to start with a knight out of the gate. Module.
Well, you have Explorator B with the sort of...
That is true.
It's a knight, but not a knight.
Yeah, knight in quotes. Better than the knights, honestly. But we have the Bioregenerator, which is a module where consumables restore 10 HP whenever a crew member uses them. And you start with multiple pieces of equipment. You get 2 cryofoam, 2 shattered
the holy
regents,
foam,
and the fusion charges, 2 of them. You also contain a launch bay in your starting loadout. And overall, this is just like a really good ship. I mean, you have a Centurion and your commander to board with out of the gate. That's incredible. Like, just that alone is
Yeah,
like makes the
100%.
ship, you know? Like,
Fully agree.
there's the armaments aren't maybe the best out there by any means. They're not exactly that strong, but it's just you will just board the enemy ship and kill everything with the Centurion. You have the ability to have extra healing if you need it through the bioregenerators, so you can
And you
guarantee
have
healing.
or not reagents, but just equipment that you won't be uh, at too great a loss if you just burn to get a little bit of extra healing in a pinch.
Yeah. The
The
cryofoams and the
cryofoam in particular, the shattered reagents are only okay,
yeah.
but you'll probably want to hold on to the fusion charges for the boss or the mini boss or that sort of thing.
But I mean, hey, starting with 2 fusion charges is really nice as well. Just guarantees you have them for when you need them, and you have a great guy to carry them in the Centurion. So it's
Exactly.
just
Exactly.
it's a really good, it's one of the best boarding starts I think you can pretty much get. Pretty much any commander that boards really likes this ship. It's very solid for that. You just gotta kind of figure out your armaments a little bit, or go all in on the boarding. Uh,
I feel the Inferno Fogas is usable, but
mhm,
the silver lining to it is that it sells for 40 scrap.
yeah.
So you're able to get another even mediocre armament pretty quickly and pretty easily just off of that by selling it.
hmm
So works out there.
Yeah,
A few other things with it
go ahead.
is yeah, a few other things. Doors 2, really helpful for a pretty large ship like that. And also kind of beneficial because the vents are not the best on this ship. It can be difficult to put out fires or suffocate certain enemy borders or enemy borders in certain rooms, I should say.
hmm
So,
Yeah, I
one
mean,
drawback
you
to
do
it.
have the cryofoams, like in emergencies. You do
So
got them.
true, so true.
But
What
one
the one
time
of
they're
the
ever
vanishingly
useful.
few instances. Exactly, exactly.
But yeah, I feel like this is another A tier ship. It doesn't
Yeah,
crack into S
I
tier, but
I honestly would put it in S.
you'd put it in S.
Yeah, the Centurion is just so
It
strong.
is so
You
good.
have boarding right out the gate.
Yeah,
If
that is
you
true. The Centurion is so goaded. Okay,
There
yeah,
aren't too
we'll
many
put it in
commanders
S
that
tier.
aren't great boarders that wouldn't augment your boarding operations with the Centurion, such that I would definitely put this in S
Okay, sure, absolutely. All right, and then the very final ship for now, Light Destroyer
for
C.
now.
Yep, Light Destroyer C is a ship that starts out with a Heat Beam 1, a 1 power beam that does not cause any damage but instead creates fire in every room it hits. You have a Graviton Cannon, which is a very fast firing one shot weapon, and then a Rift Bomb as your missile. This is a 2 damage missile that costs 1 munitions, and when it hits, it creates a subspace breach, which is the ones that summon demons. Your crew consists of the Deep Core Veteran, currently unique to only this ship. This is essentially a super version of the Commando, featuring more health, an extra DPS point, and also does not have a repair penalty. And then you also contain a Gene Soldier, a very bulky unit that we talked about a long time ago, but overall a very good unit at the moment. You also have Mirrored Fire Control as your module, which is the first non-beam weapon you fire is doubled, meaning if you fire a Rift Bomb, you get 2 Rift Bombs for the first shot. The ship also contains a launch bay out of the gate, and otherwise, this is a pretty well-rounded ship, all things considered.
Yes and no. The excuse me, your starting boarding crew absolutely fantastic. You have options to take on possessed ships off of the Deep Core Veteran, who is not necessarily strong enough to solo it, but he's pretty close to that point. The Gene Soldier is a insane unit in his own right, but this comes at the cost of having, excuse me, kind of unreliable armaments. You have the mirrored fire control for a double graviton shot if you want, but after that, it's just single shots.
Mm-hmm.
So, off of that, a bit questionable. The Rift Bomb starting out with is insane, however, as that's probably one of the best missiles in the game.
Yeah.
And it also synergizes pretty well with your Deep Core Veteran because you're causing breaches If he goes in there, he can fight, get suffocation damage on the enemy, potentially get some demonic allied crew off of the breach there. So it has quite a bit going for it, but it can stall out really, really, really hard if you don't get decent enough armaments by Sector 3 or so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But, you know, and there is a bit of a flip side in that if you do find a good armament, mirrored fire control gets kind of crazy. Like,
Oh, the ship absolutely takes off if you get
yeah, it's
even
like,
a two-shot volley weapon, though a
mhm.
three-shot is kind of ideal.
Yeah, or just a good lance. Like, if you find a good lance, it can get out of hand too. Like, if
True.
you find the macro lance for 3 damage per shot, you just get to double fire that at the start of a fight for 6 damage.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
like there's I think a lot of potential here, but yeah, definitely it's like if you don't if
Oh, I
you're
think the ship overall is extremely good. I'm
mhm,
most likely going to put it in A.
yeah,
It's just there are some caveats to the ship,
absolutely.
and you need to be cognizant of those drawbacks while playing it to get the most out of it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
personally really, really like this ship, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know, for everything that you love, you need to be honest and critical with it. So
Absolutely. No, I agree with the A tier placement. I think that's a pretty reasonable uh place to put it overall.
I'd probably put it above light A personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, I like Deep Core and Gene Soldier a lot because they have tool slots. The shields are
Yeah,
so good in this game that it's just like
100%.
the fact you can stick it. That's why Deep Core is like such a better version of Commando because you get that shield on him and he actually can like hold his own.
Oh, he becomes insane once you get that shield. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, but yeah, that early game fumbling, like the early rift bombs miss because the 5% dodge chance decided to make both miss. It's like miserable. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, overall, it's like the light destroyers are just overall like a great series of
We have an A tier, an
ships.
S tier, and an A tier. They're just good ships. They're
Yeah.
fun ships. They're great.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to finalize this tier list. So, let's anything you have notes on in terms of the tiers or anything like that.
Yeah, I would probably move Explorator A down a couple ranks, just below Relic C. It's a good ship. It's so desperate for boarding, and the fact that it lacks it out the gate is a bit of a demerit in my eye.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
And the one other thing I do is I'd move Relic A up above Imperial C. It's just so
Yeah,
consistently strong.
it's like the top three. It's like it's such a good ship. It's just little
It's also
less
just a fun
utterly
ship to play.
yeah, it's just a little less completely broken than the other two ships. Like honestly, like Heavy C and Explorator B probably should be like in their own S plus tier. I would
They
almost say.
kinda are. They
I
really
would.
are in a league of their own,
In fact, I
but
could even.
nonetheless,
Yeah, I mean, I could even add a additional row
broken
above.
tier.
Yeah, yeah, just to be a little more accurate, these two are so
Again,
strong.
in a league of their own.
Yeah, they're like there's the only ships that I think like could maybe warrant actually getting nerfed because they're too good. They're just
I would
yeah,
agree.
leagues above. But yeah, I'm otherwise fairly happy with this ranking. I think this looks I mean, there's always going to be room to argue about, maybe the ship's a little bit better than
Y
another one, but
Yeah, we're getting into the minutia at this point, but more or less where it needs to be, about where I'd put these ships as well. And one thing worth pointing out overall is that the ship quality in Void War overall is pretty solid. It's
mhm,
stacked in favor, of course, S plus S. The the A tier actually has the most ships in total.
mhm.
You only have a few ships that are not too fun to play and a few that are a bit annoying. So
Yeah, I'd
it's
say it's only like I'd say B up is all good, It's like
agreed, agreed.
it's the 5 and the 3 and C, the 2 and D. Like really those are the only ones that I say like are still like they're a bit too crippled at the moment. you know.
For some of them, there's a basis for it. Like with Ancient A, it's always going to be that double missile bay
Yeah.
challenging ship. It's about as strong as it needs to be to give you a fighting chance with that setup. But that setup is just going to be the hard mode. Okay, you know how to play Void War if you can T12 this ship.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's
same with Relic.
kind of like Cannibal. You know, it's like that commander is like you can't buff it, you can't buff Cannibal anymore, or else he breaks the game. But he's also like so crap sometimes. It's like it's like kind of like that. I think.
Again, you're rolling the dice with Cannibal for sure.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, overall the quality is like you said, very nice. It's like you can win with any of these ships too. It's not like any of these ships are so unplayably bad, especially with the last patch that they are like beforehand, I would say like if you rolled like Relic B, it'd be like extremely tough to win like on Torment 12 with it. Not impossible, but it's definitely like I mean, even now I'd
Challenging.
still say it's hard, but at least there's like a little bit more going for it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so any other closing thoughts as we kind of wrap this up?
Uh, Not particularly. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on. I'm glad we were able
Absolutely.
to
Thank you for
set this up, make
collaborating
this
and
work.
making this long video happen. I mean,
Yeah.
again,
No,
you
it was
can.
fun.
Yep, and then again in the description you'll be able to find Siggy's YouTube channel, so go check out his stuff over there.
I appreciate that.
Make sure to also obviously subscribe here if you want to see more Void War content. Especially with such a long video that's gotten done now. I'm trying to do content a little more consistently at least, but otherwise, yeah, that is the Void War ship tier list. So I want to thank everybody for watching
Sticking out
and
this long.
yeah, if you've watched, kudos. That this has been a long one. Good podcast video almost.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yep, so thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a good one.